Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday afternoon, President Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr just dropped an absolute bombshell that honestly changes the entire narrative as it relates to the ongoing investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. You see, earlier this month on August 5th, the House Oversight Committee actually subpoenaed the Department of Justice demanding the release of everything in their possession that relates to Jeffrey Epstein, so we are about to be getting a lot more information. And so, because of this congressional investigation, yesterday afternoon, former Attorney General Bill Barr gave his testimony under oath about everything that he knows relating to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, as you all know, Bill Barr was President Trump's Attorney General from February 2019 to December of 2020, when he resigned because he disagreed with President Trump about all of the very obvious fraud that took place in the 2020 election. And so since then, Bill Barr and President Trump have had a tumultuous relationship, to say the least, which is why it makes it so massive that Bill Barr just came forward yesterday afternoon and said that when he was Attorney General, he didn't see anything in the Epstein files that would criminally implicate President Trump. Now, keep in mind, Bill Barr was the Attorney General during Epstein's 2019 arrest, when Epstein died in his prison cell, and when the original Epstein files were put together, before Joe Biden got into the White House and before the Democrats got their hands on the files. And this is super important to make note of because we've all heard President Trump say time and time again that between 2021 and January of 2025, the Democrats edited and manipulated those files. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, Bill Barr's testimony under oath yesterday afternoon pretty much confirms that there is no evidence that links President Trump to any of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, completely dismantling the far-left radical progressive narrative trying to damage President Trump. And I'll tell you what, Bill Barr's lack of loyalty to President Trump actually makes his testimony in this case even more credible. He has absolutely no motive to protect him, yet he still declares President Trump's innocence. The reality is, Bill Barr doesn't even like President Trump, and he's most certainly not trying to get anything from President Trump either. He doesn't want a spot in the current administration. He's not trying to get a pardon. He doesn't even need one. He's just telling the truth because, once again, he was under oath. But now, folks, I've got something else I want to show all of you guys today, but first, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. Let me go ahead and introduce all of you to a man named Michael Wolff, who's a political journalist that conducted over 100 hours of recorded interviews with Jeffrey Epstein between 2014 and 2017, before he died. You see, Michael Wolff actually recently had something very interesting to say about this entire situation. Take a look.
Epstein believed that Donald Trump went to the Palm Beach police and said, Jeffrey Epstein has young girls at his house, thereby beginning the legal process which would ultimately bring Jeffrey Epstein down.
So, folks, do you understand what all of that means? Jeffrey Epstein himself actually believed that in 2004, it was none other than Donald Trump who first reported him to the police, which led to his arrest in 2006 and ultimately his criminal conviction in 2008. Have you heard that in the mainstream media? Yeah, didn't think so. As a reminder, the Democrats and all of their lackeys in the mainstream media had 4 years to release information relating to Jeffrey Epstein, but they chose not to. Only now that President Trump is back in the White House are we finally getting some transparency. But you know what? We actually have yet another key figure here who actually further corroborates President Trump's innocence. Take a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is attorney Bradley Edwards, who back in 2008 actually represented over 70 of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. So go ahead and take a listen to what Edwards had to say about President Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. As it turns out, Donald Trump not only tipped off the police about Epstein in 2004, he banned him from all of his properties in 2005, and then willingly provided information to help Epstein's victims in 2009. Folks, at this point, we not only have an absolutely overwhelming amount of evidence proving that President Trump wasn't criminally involved with Jeffrey Epstein, but that also he actually worked with law enforcement to help shut down Epstein's entire criminal enterprise. And so I'll tell you what, while the Democrats are attempting to politicize the Epstein situation in order to slander President Trump, the reality is it's only now that President Trump is back in the White House that the truth is finally getting exposed. And that truth is crystal clear. Like we said earlier, Bill Barr has absolutely zero reason to lie. In fact, because he was under oath, if he did lie, he could catch some federal charges. And once again, as Attorney General in 2019 and 2020, Bill Barr had complete and total access to the Epstein files before the Democrats tampered with them. So if anyone knows what was really in those files, it would be Bill Barr. And so, folks, here's the reality. In addition to all of the other information that we've gone over today, Bill Barr's congressional testimony just proves without a shadow of a doubt how desperate all of the far-left radical progressives really are to criminally link President Trump to Jeffrey Epstein, despite a complete and total lack of proof or evidence. And once again, between 2021 and early 2025, when the Democrats were running the country, as far as all of this Epstein stuff goes, it was radio silence. Only now that President Trump is back in the White House are we finally getting some answers. And so now, as we look to the future, thanks to the House Oversight Committee and President Trump's DOJ's willingness to release all of their information that relates to Jeffrey Epstein, over the next couple of days, we are going to be getting a lot more information. That said, it's important to keep in mind, despite what the left-wing media has been screeching about for the last couple of weeks, we now have the absolute proof that President Trump is completely clear of any wrongdoing whatsoever. Which means that now we can finally try to get some justice for the victims and actually hold the real Epstein clients accountable for everything that they did. And so, folks, as I like to say, this is exactly what it looks like to finally put America first.